members of the age-friendly reference group will be available to speak and also to answer questions. I also, before I open it up to members of the committee, I'll pass over to Councillor Halliday as Chair of the Social Sustainability Subcommittee to just give a brief update as to the conversation that was had in their meeting when this was on their agenda. So yeah, we'll pass over to Martin before we open it up more widely for questions, and then look for a mover and a seconder of the recommendations. So yeah, Janice, I'll pass over to you initially though. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Morena koutou. It's a pleasure to be here today. On behalf of Claire Iwi, who is on some long-booked annual leave and not here to present this report to you, but I think that John and I will hopefully do an admirable job, and you can report back to her about our success. But it really is a pleasure to table this report for you today. As you will note from the report, the age-friendly approach has already been considered by the Social Sustainability Subcommittee. We've subsequently worked with Chris and her team and the reference group to align the age-friendly approach to the new strategic architecture that Chris has taken you through this morning. And certainly I am very pleased with where this has all landed and excited that work on the implementation plan is already underway. But with that, I'd like to hand over to John Hayes, who I'm sure you all know well, who was the chair of the age-friendly reference group, to make some comments on behalf of the reference group as you consider this report.
Thank you, Janice. I feel very humbled to be here. I feel imposter syndrome is creeping up on me. I'm thinking of a gentleman called Alex Kalachi, who is a Brazilian-born gentleman whose idea age-friendly was. I'm thinking of Kathleen Brasher, who was kind enough to come and speak to our launch many years ago. And Kathleen was Alex's offsider in Geneva. Can I just tell you one little story? Alex Kalachi's mother was severely impaired in terms of movement, and she turned up to see her son at the World Health Organization headquarters in Geneva. They had a beautiful set of marble stairs going up to his office, and they had no lift, and she couldn't get up the stairs. So Alex went into the Director General of the World Health Organization and said, "I've got a job for you, come with me." And they together lifted his mother up the stairs, and that is where age-friendly started. Because the Director General, being a young and sprightly, or relatively young and sprightly person, it had never occurred to him that this was an issue for people of less abilities than he had. And that's what this is all about. Alex Kalachi and Kathleen Brasher have been part of this effort. In the document that you have before you, it mentions about 1,000 people, over 1,000 people consulted. There are more than that. It's been going on for years, this. I have to mention Jill Stansfield, who went to Melbourne, and Kathleen Brasher lit the flame that blazed with great intensity. And Jill carried that banner very proudly and with great intensity and rapidity. When her effort began to fail, when she began to fail, her friend Trevor Daniel took it up, and he and my friend Kevin Burrows then took it to the next level, and here we are today. I must say I'm very, very honoured that we are here today. I'd like to thank Chris, because Chris has educated us. We had an interesting subcommittee meeting, didn't we? That was one of the most enjoyable meetings I've ever been present at. However, we've all got to learn, and it's wonderful that we've landed on this place. I'd like to really acknowledge the work that Chris and her team have done. And I'd just like to quote the last paragraph of the preface that I suspect Chris largely wrote. The age-friendly approach is the first element in our strategic architecture to be reviewed and realigned. And this is the bit that I like. And it is our intention that its place in the new strategic architecture will ensure that age friendliness is the primary focus of all work progressed by the Kapiti Coast District Council. If Jill Stansfield had seen that, just imagine her eyes light up. Just imagine her brandishing that as a cudgel in the halls of this council. That's incredibly powerful. I feel very humble and very grateful to be able to read that. And I thank you for your time.
Kia ora, John. Kia ora, Janice. Oh, yeah, it does feel like quite a kind of momentous decision that we'll be making today off the back of what has been a labour of a lot of time and a lot of love and a lot of hard work by so many across so many years. So I'll pass to Councillor Halliday, though, as Chair of the Social Sustainability, to add anything to this before we open it up for further questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Great to see you here, John. Been a long time coming, hasn't it? And the crew at the head of the table there. Coming into not this triennium, but the previous triennium, we were certainly badgered with regards to the age-friendly process by Jill, by Kevin, by Trevor, which I took on board. And unfortunately, we weren't able to land that in the last triennium, but COVID played a big part in that with regards to that. And it slowed everything down. And unfortunately, some of those wonderful people aren't with us today. But I think if they're looking down on us, they'll be very, very happy with this piece of work. Look, just reporting back from the Social Sustainability Committee, we had a great meeting over this. Me and my chair and on the screen and that sort of thing, a lot of argy-bargy. And it was around the change from strategy to approach. And Kathy was tenacious with regards to everyone's done this work on a strategy, and I was sort of tenacious in another way, saying, yeah, but things have changed, and this, the document showed our approach, and it's a vision work that we've been doing, and that was another thing that slowed this down. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a misstep in that process, which was not informing the age-friendly reference group around that change, and we apologised, and I just want to thank council officers because we acknowledged a mistake that had been made, took ownership of it, and we rectified the problem I think in a mana-enhancing way. And it was a great meeting that we had, which was part of the recommendation that the ECC made, that it's going to be important that as we move forward in the strategy, that there is an understanding with the group of what the approach means. And unfortunately, that got caught up. We weren't quite ready to talk in that space, but this was one of those pieces of work that was in train and unfortunately got caught up in that process. So I'm very, very happy that you are all happy that we're in a good place here. I will save the other bits and pieces till debate and that sort of stuff, but I think coming from that Social Sustainability Committee, we really thrashed some things out there. We addressed a problem, it got resolved, and we're here now with a better document for it and a better understanding for it. So certainly endorse where we are and looking forward to seeing if there's any conversation around this.
Great, thank you, Councillor Halliday. Any questions from the table? Councillor Coe.
Yes, look, I know you haven't gone really down the track of looking at implementation, but I'm just wondering how some of these things might be implemented. I just have a little bit of a concern that we've got some lovely motherhood and apple pie things in here, and how is this going to be implemented? Is it something where every time we do something in council we ask, is this age friendly, or what's the impact on older people? What's the thoughts around how it will actually come to life?
Yeah, good question. I'll pass over to Janice.
Yes, it will be that, but it'll be that and. So sitting towards the top of the pyramid means that it is something that there would be an expectation council staff working on a range of projects actively consider age-friendly. They consider this approach, they consider the focus areas within it and what that means for their work. There will also be obviously a sector-wide response required. This is not just, it is not just council that will need to bring the age-friendly approach to life. within the district. And in that sense, there will be a cross-sector implementation plan developed. So developing that action or implementation plan is the next key step in terms of the work with the sector. Again, it is intended that is something that Council will make a significant contribution to in terms of the implementation actions, but it won't just be Council delivering on that plan.
Kia ora, thanks for that answer, Janice, and for the question.
Could I comment on that too, Madam Chair? Would that
Yeah,
be all right?
yeah, just briefly. Thank you.
We'll be brief. Hear what you're saying, Liz. There's two aspects to this. There is the lens aspect that's been referred to. It's a little bit like the climate change in our agendas. So pretty much all that will be cast across all work streams. The flip side to that will be implementation. There is going to be a reference group giving oversight to that and oversight to outcomes as well. I note that the reference group have said they're happy to give oversight for the next 12 months, but at which point there needs to be a panel appointed, which I think will be part of that process of establishing that, which will give ongoing oversight with regards to how this is implemented, as well as ensuring that we are looking at getting the outcomes that we're after. Is that helpful at all?
Well, can I just follow up and say, does that mean there will be some kind of measurement of how well we're doing in this space? Will there be some like success factors or? Oh, sorry.
Yes, and the approach document itself starts to outline how success will be measured. But Chris, I'm sure will want to comment on how that will happen within our overall framework as well.
Yeah, if I just note, as we're developing the outcomes framework, the expectation in setting the model that we have that I talked through this morning is that we will be reporting specifically on metrics that we set with an age-friendly lens. So my proposition is that we're actually going to report we've set this as an approach, we'll be reporting against it to go, are we achieving the outcomes? Well, in a report, it will form part of our annual report. So you know how we have better measurement, there'll be elements of that, but we're actually going to have it on our webpage and update the measures that we can more regularly so that we've got more of a live feel of like a dashboard, that's exactly right. Are we making the impact that we want to? So, and that's what I was talking about this morning, about making sure we actually have our focus on the right things. So, age friendly, because that is our first approach we've landed, is going to be the first one that we pursue and start to set up the examples, if you like, of what will go forward in terms of dashboards, of focus, of how that's going to drive through. So Martin did just talk about us all being required to talk about how are you responding to age friendliness in the work you're doing. So you're going to see these things start to flow through an acceptance of the approach today.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Councillor Coe. Community Board Member Simon Black on Zoom.
Kia ora team, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you just fine.
Great. Hey, thanks very much, John, and thanks everyone for that hard work that we do. I mean, I agree that we need to take all age groups into consideration in everything that we do. My specific question is, what is our approach with our interaction of our aged with rangatahi and our younger generation, so that we build, respect, wisdom transfer, and interaction, social interaction with those generations?
I think John would like to make a comment on this. Thanks, John.
Am I on? Yes, I am, right. This is one of the great things about this community. The Older Persons Council, which Kevin is now chair of, has had quite regular interaction with the Youth Council. And the Youth Council, I've spoken to the Youth Council on occasions, it is the most invigorating atmosphere that you can possibly imagine. And whenever the oldies and the youngies get together, things happen. There's enormous goodwill. Just one example is the cell phone issue. I'm talking to someone not too far away from me this morning about the challenges of technology, which in fact I believe the council's been dealing with as well. Get a kid involved, they'll sort it out. And that's just one example of how we can and how we are cooperating. I must say, though, that what we need is more coordination, and I think that's what this is leading us towards. In terms of the implementation that Councillor Coe was talking about, the next phase is to assemble the people who are actually doing things in our community. That's where the plan will come from. And if I can just go through what happened in Hamilton, there the mayor of the time appointed a committee and said, you will produce this document within a year. You have 1 year to go. And their first action was to go around the various departments in the council and say, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve. What's in your work plans that would support that? What could you do? What would you like to do? And go through this this person who's been in central government knows exactly this process. That's what happens in central government. The thing that we've got to do is now go to the communities, to the community organisations with exactly that kind of process. And the mayor's been involved in some discussions about the mechanism to do that, to get these people who are doing things together, often in splendid isolation, often without knowing that there's someone else down the road doing something very similar. So it's a matter of coordination, and I think this could be the real advantage of the approach that Chris is promoting, that we have got the opportunity of doing something very special here.
That's great. And I agree, you know, we need to look at coordination, how many groups are out there addressing fringes of this. Also, do we have enough meeting spaces and places to enable this?
Could you just clarify the question? Are you talking about between the people as part of the reference group?
One of the parts of the vision that we're looking for Otaki is actually having a space for rangatahi, a hangout space. Do we have enough open public spaces just that people can drop in and actually have these interactions, and to allow this transfer and interaction between youth and our older generation?
Yeah, we'll invite a response from Janice, but I think this might be a slightly kind of wider conversation, and one which actually the approach will help to colour, which will be potentially, support with delivering some of those enhanced outcomes that you're talking to. So, Janice.
Yes, exactly what Councillor Hanford just said. So, an example of how the age-friendly approach will be used across a range of council initiatives would be that when we are looking at things like the Waikano Library and Community Hub project, the Te Niuwhanga Community Centre project, the review of the community facilities in Otaki project, age-friendly, and the degree to which those projects present an opportunity to bring the age-friendly approach to life is exactly how this piece of work should be used in that context. And it will uncover whether or not we do indeed have the right kind of public open spaces or indoor facilities to create those connection points for older people, as an example.
Awesome, thank you. Simon, was that all of your
questions?
Thanks,
team. That's all my questions, thank you.
Thank you, and feel free to just pop your hand up on Zoom if you have any other questions on other items. Kevin, did you want to mention something, and then we'll go to Councillor Pavanov?
Yes, if I could just make a comment about the Youth Council. When was it like we started this? 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we had some community meetings about age friendly. This was run by Grey Power and council staff. And I had a number of meetings with the Youth Council. And they're very supportive, very, very, very good in all those things. And there was a saying that came out of some of those meetings, basically, that was, what's good for older people is generally good for the community. The example I used, quite a simple example, was that if you put a ramp in instead of steps, it's good for older people. It's also good for younger people who have got push chairs and whatever. So John's right. I think Kapiti has got a very good youth council, actually, very supportive, and they're very supportive. And we work as the older person chair, the newly elected chair of the older person council. I want to start looking at how we could work closer with the youth council. We have common issues. Safety is probably a common issue there. So the two organisations do, in my opinion, do work well together. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you for that, Kevin. I think the Intergenerational Human Library Project was another awesome example of that, and the stories that were told through that bit of work. So lots of opportunity to do more. Councillor Pravanov, and I'm not seeing any other questions, so we'll then pass over to Martin to move.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate all the work that staff have done, that John has done, that Kevin and various other people have done in terms of this piece of work. I just want some clarification on, I suppose, what the word, and Kevin's just probably touched on some of the points that I wanted to set the scene on to ask my question, is that to me, age-friendly, well, my question is, age-friendly seems to me actually relates to all age groups. When you look in the introduction here, it says here, seeks value and support ageing and Kapiti with a focus on those over 65 and over. So to me, there seems to be a little, I'm not sure whether it's confusion or what, but age-friendly seems to encompass all people, age groups to me, but this piece of work, which is actually a very, very good piece of work, focuses on those above 65, and so that's fine, but is there going to be a similar piece of work for those below 65? So first of all, clarification around the term age-friendly, and how this relates to all those people below 65 when it's quite clear that the focus on this is for over 65.
Thank you, Councillor. You've touched on a point of discussion that's gone back well over 10 years about this. If Wendy Houston, who's one of the reference group, was here, she'd be making exactly the same point of view. This is for all ages. The reality is, in our community, much of the work is done by community organisations, volunteers. And there's reference, I think, in the document that mentions some of that effort. A previous mayor of this district said at one stage, if it wasn't for the volunteers in this community, the place would seize up. And most of the work in this area has been done by those who are over the age of 65. However, what's good for a pushchair is good for a wheelchair. And this is work I've always seen being done primarily by those of a certain age who have graduated to the gold card and therefore have got enough spare time, to unpaid spare time, I might say, to devote to this. But it's for the benefit of all the community. I think this is for all ages.
We're just going to pass to Janice Jocelyn, and then we'll come back to you.
And just to address the second part of the question around whether there will be anything focused specifically on youth, we do have existing approaches in place around youth. So obviously we have a youth council. There is a range of funding directed at youth activities via the community support activity within the long-term plan, and there is a youth action plan as part of that whole setup. I do expect, though, to be having a conversation with Chris around whether an approach around youth or younger people within the context of the new strategic framework is something that we might move towards, or indeed any other kind of mechanism within the strategic architecture. But so I guess what I'm signalling is we have some things in place for youth. I expect that will change as the new strategic architecture is put in place.
Nice. So it'll kind of evolve as our approach does. Awesome. Councillor Pravanov.
So thank you for that explanation, John. to me, though, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and I agree with exactly what you're saying, but when you actually look at this document, and it's a great document, but it is very older 65 centric. And, you know, from what you've just said, and as opposed to what's in this document, it doesn't quite fit.
Thanks for that, Councillor Pravanov. Might be worth, if you would like to, bringing that up in debate. Just, are there any other further questions? Councillor Warwick. Oh, did you want to? Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Warwick, before we come to you. It's on, yeah.
It's on. Just to perhaps give a little bit more background, the council made a decision in 2011 to adopt an age-friendly approach, and it's really taken us this time to really get to grips with what that might mean, and we've made a lot of progress in the last year. But just to address your issues and concerns, we support the age-friendly approach, but our focus has been driven particularly by WHO and the Ministry for Seniors and all the policies within government, it's within central government in terms of the healthcare and residential care for the aged and all of those things. So there is quite a lot of detail in those areas that apply strictly to older people rather than to youth. But in terms of things like access, youth has got the same issues as older people in getting into buildings and things like that. So just to reposition the thinking about that, that was a comment I'd like to make.
Thank you. That's a really useful point. I think Janice is just keen to make one last point, and then we'll pass to Councillor Warwick. Oh, sorry, Councillor Warwick, you might need to turn yours off and then put it back on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to reinforce the last comments, if you could indulge me for a second, I'd like to read to you from the World Health Organization website and its description of, well, they talk about an age-friendly world, but the WHO Age-Friendly Cities Framework developed in the Global Age-Friendly Cities Guide proposes 8 interconnected domains that can help to identify and address barriers to the well-being and participation of older people. Inherently, at a WHO level, as has been acknowledged, age-friendly work is about, you know, the well-being, participation, and active ageing of older people.
Kia ora, Janice. Councillor Warwick.
Really quickly, we've got a disability advisory group. Are they involved in this as well? Yep. Oh, cool.
Yeah, awesome. Great example of a very succinctly put question. Thanks, Councillor Warwick. Community Board Member B. Larissy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, I don't know if you know, but we're doing a vision project in Raumati. Would your group be interested and willing to work with us on that? Great, thank you.
Awesome. Love this. Okay, that was very quick. Setting a good standard. Okay, so we'll move to recommendations A, B and C on page 7. I'm aware that Councillor Halliday has indicated that he'd like to move, and Councillor Spires would like to second. Thank you. Right of introduction, Councillor Halliday.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair. As mentioned before, a long time coming. I'm going to keep this pretty short and succinct. This is a great piece of work. It's been in train for a long time. It's now here. Everyone's keen to see it now implemented, and we move forward. So I'm very hopeful that this will be a unanimous decision with regards to supporting these recommendations, and then we can get on with the kaupapa of making it all happen.
Awesome.
So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Halliday. Councillor Spires.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank staff very much for getting together with the reference group and talking through the whole issue of the strategy versus approach and going through the whole thing. I think it was really good, and so thank you so much. And it also gives the Older Persons Council, you know, something to get their teeth into now as well. And with a new chair, I'm sure we're going to go places, aren't we, Kevin?
No pressure. Thanks, Kathy. Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you. So, you know, as I said before, you know, this is an excellent piece of work. I see that this is in place for another year. But I think that there does need to be a little bit more thought around some of the, I suppose, the terminology that is used in there. I will vote for this today. But as I said, over the next year, I think really there needs to be some thought around, you know, yeah, as I said, some of the terminology. Thank
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pavanov. I think you've made that point quite clear, so I think that's been noted. Mayor Holbrook.
Thank you. What a momentous day. I'd just like to acknowledge all the many people who've put so much advocacy, energy, and work into creating this document today. John, thanks for your presentation today and all the work you've done, and everybody else. I won't start to name people because then I'll miss people out, because there have been so many people involved. I would like to particularly acknowledge Jill and Trevor today and the work they've done, not only on this piece of work, but also being in these chambers, advocating on behalf of older people. And Kevin too, you've had a lot to do with that over the years. I'd also like to acknowledge the Older Persons Council, that long-standing organisation, and the councillors who've contributed to that, particularly Councillor Spires, Councillor Halliday. It's just such a huge piece of work. I don't want us to get hung up on terminology that's been handed down to us by the World Health Organization or anything like that. This is a piece of work for a large sector of our community who needs specific measures and specific outcomes. In terms of other ages, I held a very successful youth hui in the council chambers to see how we can refresh and start to look at ways that we can make the district work for our younger people. And there was standing room only in the chambers, so huge impetus already to start progressing work on behalf of our younger people. And I look forward to kind of springing that into action at the same time as we progress this work. It's just such an exciting time, and perfectly happy to hold a older person's hui along those lines as well to kickstart this exciting next phase in this piece of work. So huge congratulations to everyone involved.
Kia ora. Thanks, Mayor Holbrook. Very well summarised there. Deputy Mayor Lawrence Kirby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say I fully support this introduction, and it's great to see it come to the table after a long time. I think we are all tracking towards being in this age group at some stage of older persons, and to be able to say that we've passed something that we will benefit from in future generations, I think is an important thing to say. Because for me, I have older parents, one left now, and one of the big challenges that she faces is covered in some of this recommendation. And the world that we live in, we must consider all ages, but often our elder populations fall behind some of the questions that we ask around youth and children. And I love the quote that is in the introduction at the top of one of our senior citizens, senior statesmen of our history of Kapiti Coast, Parata, where he says, "Listen to the wisdom of your elders, cloak yourself with this knowledge to share with the world." I think that is a great whakatauki to start this piece of work with and to introduce it with, because it places value on our older people, because they do have a lot to contribute to our society, and we need to value and work to support and grow that connection and passing on of wisdom to our younger generations as well. So thank you for this approach.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor Kirby. Councillor Coe.
Thank you. Look, this is a hugely important piece of work, and I've just been doing a travelling roadshow through the country talking about some of these issues, the impact of ageing populations and so on. And one of the statistics I quote in that is that around 59% of people over the age of 65 have some form of disability. And I think, we're already at 26% people over 65. That's going to go well into the 30s before too long. So highly significant. I'm really interested in the proof of the pudding, though. So it's about how we implement this, and how age-friendly are we currently? There is a piece of work to be done there. What can we do now to improve age friendliness in our community, and how are we going to measure that? I don't think this is something that should just be applied to any new projects. I think we've got issues there now. Let's do a stock take and say, if we're going to use this as a benchmark, how do we stack up currently, and what are the pieces of work that we need to do to improve our age friendliness, and let's lead the way on this, because I don't think anybody is out there leading the way on age friendly communities. The other thing too is that there is funding available from the Office for Seniors around age friendly strategies. Are we making the most of the funding that's available, and are we trying to encourage the powers that be in national government to make more funds available for age-friendly communities? Because it looks to me as though it's another one of those areas where they just throw a few little dollars at it and say, oh, well, we've got this age-friendly stuff happening over here, aren't we wonderful? But it's nowhere near sufficient. So we need to lobby, I think, for more resource to be available for this, throughout the country. So yeah, I'm fully in support of this.
Kia ora, Councillor Coe. Great points. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, just quickly, I just want to join in the endorsement of people like Jill Stansfield and Trevor Daniel, and the work that Kevin's done, and John and his group, and Grey Power and Age Concern, and all of those people who, some of whom aren't with us anymore, but who contributed to this enormous piece of work. I'm with Liz on this. I think monitoring is vital. And as we develop policies in council around housing, health, recreation, whatever it happens to be, this provides a template for considering those age concerns that can go into that. And just quickly to Lawrence's point, some of us, Lawrence, are there already, and I can tell you it's a fun time. So you've got something to look forward to in your dotage.
I'll set up a countdown on my phone right now to 65. Hopefully we've got a wee while. Mayor Holborough.
Sorry, I know I've spoken already, but I don't think we can let today go by without mentioning Betty Van Galen and the work that she did over so many years.
Kia ora. Thank you for that acknowledgement. Andre.
Tēnā koutou te hunga kaumātua kua taitina na mai ki tēnei huhuinga. E tika ana ngā whakaaroaroha ki a rātou, kua whakangaro atu ki te pō. Jill, Trevor, koutou mā, hotu ngā mihi aroha ki a rātou. I'm very respectful of our kaumātua that are here representing the kaumātua of our district. Very honoured that this document carries the whakatauki of my great-great-grandfather, Te Kākākura Wiparata. I'm very excited to know that we are wanting to reinstate the importance and the significance of the elders of our district. There's a great deal that we can rely upon from their life skills, their wisdom, the knowledge that they hold, and it's right and proper that we should encourage them to be visible in all things that we attend to as a district. So first of all, to the elders of our district, I acknowledge you on behalf of our iwi. I'm going to ask to be excused because I'm heading to Youth Court in Porirua, and the conversation today about the link between our tamariki, our taiohi, our rangatahi, our pakake, and our kaumātua is very, very relevant, and a very different world to that which many of us recall as a child. I too, Councillor Nigel, refer to now from time to time as koko. So I do appreciate the transition that you take to understand the world of an infant and a child that is of a completely different generation. and the appreciation that I need to have for their worldview. So I do encourage us to work harder to ensure that there is a seamless relationship developed between the elders of our district and the children of our district, our mokopuna. And it should excite us to know that we have the mandate of this council and the authority given to us as individuals to continue developing those relationships, what are very, very important, as you all know. So I commend you for the work that's been done. I acknowledge officers of council, elected members here today that have given their endorsement, and look forward to our future engagement between our iwi of Ngāti Tōrangatira, Tatiawa ki Whakarongotai, e ngā hapu o Taki. Kia ora mai tātou.
Kia ora, Andre. Thank you for your whakaaro and those words, which I think are a really great way to end this kōrero before we head to a right of reply from Councillor Halliday and then put these recommendations to the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I don't have much to add to all that. I think everything's been covered. I think we're in a really good place with this. I'm going to get a little bit told off here, I'm sure, but there is one person here that I would like to mention. Staff have done a fantastic job in this space, but a common name that I've heard is Claire Riwi, with regards to a person who's been, should we say, calming troubled waters. And I just wanted to ask council officers to ensure that Claire is thanked for the work that she's done in this space as well, because I know that it has something that definitely has come through from the panel and just hadn't been mentioned today as well. And on that note, yeah, I'm happy to move the motion, Madam.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Martin, for raising that. And I know that, that we would all 100% endorse both that thank you to Claire and also the many other acknowledgements that have been made of all the people who have contributed to this kōrero and this work. So I know that those of you who haven't spoken, I'm sure, are hopefully right behind this kaupapa. And I, in that spirit of kind of mahitahi working collectively, that has both carried us through, I think, now being where we are and coming to this approach, and also the work that will continue on, both between the generations and within them as well. So we've got our recommendations on page 7, A, B and C, moved by Councillor Halliday, seconded by Councillor Spires. All those in favour? Aye. Against? And that is unanimously carried. Thank you, John. Awesome. Great. How are people feeling? Do we need a quick break or can we press on? Press on? Press on. Okay, we're going to press on. Okay, 5-minute break. We'll come back at 10 past. Oh, sorry, actually 11:15. 11:15. We're coming back at 11:15.